Hello, folks, and welcome to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a healthy and hefty dose of optimism. I'm your co host, Seth Boyd.
I am Megan Tierney.
And, folks, we're coming back at you with another movie, a American film, kind of indie movie, a director debut for an actor.
Yes.
Megan, this was a movie I'm really glad you brought to our attention, but why don't you have the honor of saying the name and kind of introducing it?
Sure. Well, today, folks, we're going to be talking about Lady Bird, which is by the director Greta Gerwig. This is a very, very rarity on Film Optimist where Seth had not seen this film yet. And I felt like it was one that you would very much like, Seth, and that we would have a lot to talk about. It's a movie that when I saw it came very near and dear to my heart. I didn't see it in theaters. From what I remember, it became like a streaming one for me during the pandemic, but certainly a really like impactful one. So it was a fun watch. We are excited to talk about actually early on in her career, but pretty accomplished woman director, because this film got great critical praise, as I personally think it should. I thought it was a really beautiful like debut. I was really proud to see it, and it feels very like an honest take into a first time director's like film, and like so beautiful. Like like I said, it's a really big accomplishment, so I'm really excited to talk about her and her style in this. That's basically what I gravitated to the most. But yeah, Seth, if you have any first impressions, I'd love
I
to hear
Yeah,
some.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I was first familiar with Greta Gerwig as an actor, particularly
Hmm.
Frances Ha, which she's so charismatic and just fun to watch and fantastic in. I was very happy when she started making movies, but prior to this, I mean, she only has two movies out right now. Barbie is
Hmm.
coming out later this year, and I am more excited
Yes.
to see the Barbie movie than I expected to say out loud. But I thought her version of Little Women was fantastic. I think she's
Hmm.
a very smart and a fresh director, bringing a lot of just good quality storytelling and
Hmm.
filmmaking. So I was excited to see her debut. I will confess there's a couple reasons I didn't watch this movie already. I'm just
Yes.
not very keen on high school movies. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a thing I'll circle back around to, but high school movies were the best thing when you were in high school, you know? And it's partially just I'm not in high school, and partially, as mentioned previously, I was homeschooled. So it can never
Right.
be that familiar to me, you
I
know?
see. Hmm.
Um, Honestly, I really think that was the main reason, even though this was a movie I kept saying, yes, I'm sure I'm going to watch it. I'm sure I'm going to
Right.
watch it. And then, of course, I'm very glad I did.
Yes.
It was more enjoyable than I expected, even though I expected to be enjoyable. It was funnier than I expected.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
because I think what I knew about it was mother-daughter relation, and
Uh-huh.
which we've already talked about Obs and not the ultimate mother-daughter movie, so that's
Yes.
hurt certainly within my wheelhouse thing, but it's also like I have to kind of emotionally gear up for a family dynamic that
Yeah.
I'm not a daughter is familiar,
Sure. Oh yeah.
but I thought that was one of my favorite aspects of the movie.
Oh,
And I just love that she made this movie about her actual hometown, which is Sacramento.
that's
Um,
right.
it's not a place people usually make movies about.
It's true. For me, that's a big part of it. Like well, so what you said too, it's a very specific like high school movie. This is specifically a like all girls Catholic high school
Right.
in California. And previous listeners may know that is kind of my upbringing. Basically, it circumstantially happened that I went to Catholic school literally all through college, which is pretty crazy. But I experienced like a K through eighth Catholic school that was more like very, very like close to what I feel like this is kind of portraying, even though it was like a high school. It may have even been like a K through. Yeah, I think in the movie they say that it's she's been there since kindergarten. Like she's been there, and
Yeah.
it's like her senior year. Basically, it goes through the timeline of her senior year there. So it's a very like it is a very specific coming of age story, but I think in a way also I had it at the perfect time, because I think
Mm.
if I were It's a good reflection movie for me. Like I saw it after, obviously after like college, but I was able to relate to it so much because you think of like all the silliness that goes on during those times, and I think that that's really where the movie shines, and also like
Mm,
where the family dynamic aspect comes in, because it has this really nostalgic feel. It's also set, I should say, in like the early 2000s, which is like a big
it's right after nine
um
eleven, right? It's
that's
2002.
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
2002.
it's yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's reference. Sorry, not to interrupt, but that was surprising to me. I didn't realize it was going to take place in that era.
Yeah. Yeah, and I must be Greta's era, like
Yeah.
it's very, I'm sure, like autobiographical and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I there's something about it, like I really feel like it comes through. I think that there's a sincerity there, that it's kind of like, if you know, there's a lot of inside humor to Catholicism, or like growing up in a Catholic school girl
Yeah.
setting kind of thing, that me and my sister, like, really, because she had the same experience as I did, that we were able to glob onto. But I think that even if you're just a teenager, growing up, you're
Right.
gonna relate to some of it, especially in California and stuff. So
Yeah.
it just hit home in a lot of ways for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I will actually, I confess, I remember the other reason now was like, who's this person who thinks they're too good for the West Coast, who's got to
Right.
go after the culture of New York,
Yes.
which, having now left the West Coast, I think I've maybe softened on my West Coast elitism. But that was a very funny aspect of it. Like, yeah, obviously Sacramento is um, comparatively not the cultural center of the world. It is the capital of
Mm-mm.
California, but like she's very mad she doesn't get into or get into Berkeley. She doesn't even try for
Right.
like SF State. It's like you could go to San Francisco.
It's very funny
Yeah,
because she gets in, well, spoiler, that she gets into Davis, but that Davis is literally like 20 minutes away from
right,
Sacramento, and it's almost the same tiff that we have in the Bay Area, of people being like, well, I can't fucking go to CSU, like
right.
Hayward, that's my backyard. Like, it's such
Yes,
a
yes,
weird block to get over, but
yeah,
it's just, it's so much like, that was a great little, like, that's a good example of like just those little aspects of
yeah.
like, we're stuck in our own little bubble here, definitely.
I mean, I think we should maybe. It's hard not to do comparing to the other high school movie we've done, Ferris Bueller. And
Sure.
I don't want to get too bogged down in compare and contrast, but I think two things that need to be noted are that we actually see the parents a lot more in this one,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
rather
And they're
than the
not
kind of
buffoons.
yeah, exactly. Rather, like we understand the problem they have the parents rather than the implied
Hmm.
noted but not actually witnessed problems Cameron has.
Right,
But
yes.
and I know we talked about this in the first Bueller episode. The thing that's the most unrelatable about it is that these teenagers have no concerns about getting into college and getting a good job.
Uh-huh.
That's a definite thing that's going to happen. It's not even a concern. Whereas Lady Bird is all about, can I get into the college I want to get into?
That's
um,
true. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think that would this movie just felt so much more grounded in an indie movie way, where like actual financial concerns were being talked about
Uh-huh.
often. It was much more grounded than I expected, so I really appreciated that. But I think we should
Yeah, for
talk
sure.
about the titular character, Ladybird,
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
because it Saoirse Ronan, is that how you say it? I believe
Saoirse.
Saoirse Ronan. Okay,
Saoirse. Hmm.
Saoirse. We're gonna let you say it more. Fantastic, great in this movie.
She
What
is.
was your end of the day take on a character? Because it is a
Hmm.
flawed character. you know.
Oh, you said it, said. No,
Yeah.
I agree. Even in, in rewatching it, I was kind of like, dang, like Lady Bird is very annoying, because had also watched it with people who hadn't watched it before ever. I watched
Mm,
it with my partner for the first time, and I think it was almost like, because it's such a personal movie to me, or like I related so much to it, I realized that in a way I do see myself sometimes in her. Like,
mm.
she's the character that I would relate to the most in this scenario, but I ended up wanting to distance myself from this person and be like, oh, she's weird, like, like, how awkward and stuff like that. But I think that's the best way to say it, is that she's just kind of, Lady Bird is definitely like an awkward character, like coming into her
Yeah.
own, but is very 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 charismatic. I think that that's a big like triumph for me. Saoirse Ronan is a very she kind of like grips you a lot. I've seen her
Hmm.
in a lot of other things too. I think she's a really phenomenal actress, and I find her very just kind of compelling. And
Hmm.
this role certainly needed it because she's just so painfully like and perfectly, I would say, awkward in the way that a really like trying hard wannabe
Hmm.
fit in kind of 16-year-old is trying to do in this setting, and just like missing, like always not quite hitting it.
Yeah.
And something also that I want to just say is that I like that it's not so fantastical that she's just this weird quirky girl and everybody accepts that. People always are reacting to her and like reacting to her very odd dialogue or just her like her fantasies, her oddities almost.
Yeah.
And that helped me it helps it ground it so much more and like make it a character with like legs and with just in this real world too. It's like I liked that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, she's kind of like the female perspective of a manic pixie dream girl. That's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
this gorgeous, captivating woman. She is those things, but a lot of people, like several times, people just say "what" after she says something very
yeah. Yeah.
odd.
Which is very funny.
She's not just leaving men spitting with her charm and quirkiness like
Right.
she seems to intend to do.
Yes.
But I really like that aspect of her. But I thought the kind of debate at the core of the movie between her and her mom
Hmm.
was, you know, all too relatable. um
Right.
because everyone
Yes.
is in this movie is flawed. It was a kind of just a good reminder, like you can have a flawed family tale that doesn't involve like heroin or gambling or something. It's just these people are.
Or outright abuse, or I
Yeah,
should say like physical abuse, which we've talked about too.
exactly. Yeah, it's just like these
Yeah.
people are talking in a very unhealthy way, because like the mom is understandably, I think, very concerned about money, but is also, her hobby seems to be just being shitty to her daughter. just like there's this scene where her and her husband are going over a bill, and then as soon as Ladybird comes home, she just directs all that anger at her, like, "Oh, I know what to do."
Yes.
you know,
Hmm.
very unhealthy dynamic. But also, I really understand the frustration of my shitty kid is really bad at school, not trying himself, and is demanding to go to Columbia.
Yeah.
As
Oh,
if we could just snap
that's
our
true.
fingers and make it happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought it was a good. I thought it was practical in that here's the things they aren't actually talking about. The
Yeah.
unwillingness to meet each other halfway or anything. How did the dynamic between them, well, between all the family members, work for you?
It was a big it kind of hits you because it's like it
Yeah.
was it's like pretty personal to me. It's like it feels that was a big triumph of the movie for me is the writing feels so real and like it just shows the dynamic of like the fabric of family a lot and how messy and how like involved it can be but still and like honestly like a little emotionally abusive in there or you can
Yes, I would say so.
see you can see how these people and even how these young adults end up being the people that they are like in the fabric of their families. So that to
Right.
me was extremely well written, and I'm sure relatable for a lot of people, especially like growing up in that era to 2001. It's like right on the brink, and then we have like even following that if you're a little younger like me, like following that with the brink of the 2008 recession, like that
Right.
energy I would say like didn't dissipate. In fact, it even like maybe amplified like later on or something like
Right.
that. So there's just such a specific like energy to the family and to that being okay-ish in the
Hmm.
2000s, like considered okay, just not having the resources or tools to like talk about it yet or like realize that you kind of can't do anything and almost it's like you're kind of stuck in it if you're still in high school and you're living under the roof, so to say, like
Right.
that's kind of your deal in life at the moment. And it shows why Ladybird's pretty anxious and desperate to get out. So it's very specific, like I don't know, she captures it very well, I feel like that mentality.
I agree. I think I like the parents are overbearing in kind of odd ways. Like
Hmm.
they vaguely talk about sex very briefly, and it's more of a, we're not actually going to talk about this. But
Right.
like she doesn't seem to necessarily have a strict curfew. It could be wrong, but it's you have to put away every item in your bedroom before bed.
Yes.
It's very kind of odd. Like she's off partying, she's having sex, she's
Hmm.
getting into trouble.
She has boyfriends too. Like,
Yeah, she has
yeah.
boyfriends, but every clothing item needs to be folded up neatly, put before
Right.
bed. Like that's I didn't have that. Growing up,
Yes.
I had more strict in the more obvious ways.
Right. Right.
And I do love the irony that the mother works in a mental health clinic, and
Yeah.
she's the worst at communicating.
That's
She
true.
kind of like weaponizes even her husband's depression is something she only talks about to throw in Lady Bird's face,
That is
not to
very
actually
true.
try to be helpful. So
And there's also, sorry to cut you off,
yeah,
but
of
there's
course,
also those really telling moments where she sees coworkers or people she knows, and she's extremely sweet. She knows about their children.
right,
She says, "How's
right,
the baby?" And so it's like what a little like extra sting to Ladybird, where she's like,
mhm,
"Please, like just notice me."
yeah,
And then her mom is so like lovely and personable to like her neighbors and stuff. I was like, "Oh gosh."
yeah.
It's just those little instances.
I think this all kind of comes to. I mean, there's several devastating moments, but I think her just asking her like, "I know you love me, but do you actually like me?"
Yeah.
And she does not give a yes or no. She says, "I just want you to be yourself," which is I think very shitty to not outright say
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And Lady Bird's responsive, what if this is it? What if this is as good as it
Uh-huh.
gets?
It's true.
That felt I remember reading that Greta Gerwig said none of this, like this is all autobiographical kind of stuff of feelings. No actual event literally happened. These are not real
Right.
conversations she had. It's
Right.
just kind of the
That's
the
good.
gist of it. I feel like yeah, like I didn't
Yeah.
have that exact conversation, but I also feel like I did. I didn't,
Uh-huh.
and that was how I felt about so many of these moments, and even the more kind of fun things that
Yeah.
happened. I know I think we should kind of shift to some of their lighter subjects in a second, but
Yeah.
I thought she really nailed that, especially with this family dynamic.
No,
Um,
I agree.
this is also a very funny movie, though. Did
It
any of the
is.
comedy kind of particularly stick out to you?
I think a lot of it is that I was impressed by, like we kind of talked about, is the reaction to Lady Bird. Like,
Yeah,
it's one thing to have a quirky, cool character, and like that's just kind of what she is, and that's the whole movie. But I really liked that they kind of call her out, like you said, like just people go like, "What?" when she says these very odd things, and that
using kind
it
of
is
old
very
timey
funny.
expressions like "I'm from the wrong side of the tracks," and
Yes. Yeah. Oh, she wrote cringe very well. I thought like
yeah,
it was
yeah,
cringy, and then people like reacting to that cringe, it makes it worse. Of course. So you're
yeah,
just like, oh, you really feel it. Like it's a
absolutely.
lot.
Also, I love her best friend. It's
Yes.
Julie. So Beanie Feldstein, who's actually Jonah Hill's sister. She's hilarious
Oh,
in this.
oh my gosh, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, I love their dynamic. I love that so much of them just being teenagers is just sitting in a really weird position, eating a bunch of snacks. Just
Yes.
although Anne, who also went to Catholic school, said unrealistic to
Right.
eat that many whole wheat wafer
Hosts.
cookies. That was because they taste like nothing, or they taste like garbage. What is your take on it? And they don't
I
give her.
think
I don't recall, but she's like, it's not a thing you just eat a sleeve of, like it's a Keebler elf cookie or something.
I may have to disagree with Anne. I
Really?
think
Okay, I have not
I
had this. So.
remember vividly saying like I would eat a bag of chips of these. Like I really wish they came like that.
Okay,
But I
amazing.
think they taste like the bottom of a ice cream cone. That's always
Okay,
what I
I can
say.
see that being tasty.
Yes.
I'm
Hmm.
if we have other Catholics listening, tell us if you would or have done that.
So sneak yourself a bag, Seth. Honestly, it's
Exactly.
fine. If it's not
I
consecrated, who cares?
I have had a actually consecrated holy wine. Someone brought that to a party once.
Not really.
This was someone just being extra shitty. This was like college. Like we all knew
Yeah.
better. I didn't go to the church. I don't know where they got it. But,
Hmm. No, that's very funny.
yeah, so much of it is just them making each other laugh,
Hmm.
being lazy and silly in a teenage way.
Yes.
And I do like that. Like you kind of see that the mom's right. Like she's not really overly applying herself to any subject. She
Oh
at one
no.
point throws away the her teacher's grade book and
Right.
lies about giving a better grade in the test. So
That's true. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I will. There, like that's a good example. There's a lot of when I feel like when you're in a Catholic school in in that way and for there for so long, there really is this weird um I can get away with anything mentality, and
Okay.
you kind of feel like you rule the school almost, like, which is what I saw from a lot in her, like even eating the hosts and stuff like that. That was really
Right.
funny, but like that's some eighth grade girl like shit
Yeah.
like that you would do in and behind, because you just, it's kind of like that apathy of I don't care, and like the
Right.
mysticism of Catholic school is not
Mhm.
affecting me right now. Like I care about boys and like people liking me and stuff like that. So that was
Yeah.
just very well written. And there is too like she has a relationship with her well a friendly relationship like with her the main nun there, or maybe I guess it's the
Yes. Yeah.
principal, I
Yeah.
assume. I've never had a nun as a teacher, so I don't really
Really?
know.
Okay.
I never. So I
Yeah.
I feel kind of lucky. I don't, I've heard bad things. I don't necessarily want
Yeah.
that. But we certainly had teachers that were just like, they really do become, for good or for bad, like it's they're a part of your life in like a bigger way than you may expect, or like they're a
Yeah.
little intrusive, even, in other words. They become familial
Yeah.
almost, and what they say kind of goes. And that dynamic was well written as well. And there are like, in as funny as it is, because it's just like weird and like such a weird time, like there's also a lot of like sweetness there
Yeah.
that I really like as well, and that they touch on like with the nuns and everything like that, and her family too, like there's sweetness in there as well. But it's just,
Absolutely. Yeah.
she touched on a lot.
So I wasn't the other, is that her adopted brother that's
I
in
believe
the
so,
house?
yes.
So I thought that, I think like, so for folks who haven't seen it, she has also in the house is her parents and her adopted brother and
Mm-hmm.
his girlfriend. And again, with her being city, multiple moments of her and her friend just going to the heist to like the um, supermarket where he works and his girlfriend works, and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of stealing magazines or just roughing them up because like seriously I work here. Come on.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
And I thought they were both great characters, and even his girlfriend is often trying to be encouraging without getting too involved, and
Right.
just kind of are very supportive of her, and their background characters. I thought they're very interesting. um,
Right.
I will say, and to reference her one more time, did have nuns, and she thought it was actually
Mm.
pretty accurate that the nun would find the prank funny, in her
Yeah.
experience.
No, that's a good example too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the prank being that I think she just do this by herself, or is she con anybody into doing this with her?
I think she thinks it up by herself, basically,
Yeah,
but she's trying to impress the popular girl, basically.
yeah. Go ahead,
Um,
tell
oh,
the
where
prank. Yeah,
the big funny prank that the nun finds funny is that they write "Married to Jesus" on her car, like a PT Cruiser,
yeah,
something nice and modest, but with the whole shebang of like a wedding parade and stuff like that,
right. Cans
which
on
is
the right.
honestly very funny.
It is funny.
If you, yeah.
The nun found it funny, and as well, and I
Mhm.
think it's a good joke.
It is.
Yeah,
There's a lot of like very specific like the thing about leave room for the Holy Spirit or whatever, that
right,
like
right.
that is said that was said. Measuring the skirts every day was done to us. So like if you think that that's like it happened basically, if you
Right.
want to know, like it's very accurate, I found. So I agree with
All
Anne.
real.
Yeah.
We have the actor Steve McKinley Henderson, who was also in Dune. Is briefly, remember he's the Howard. He's one of the
Oh,
Mentats in that.
oh
The
my
guy
gosh, I
who's the
wouldn't even
first
know.
a drama professor that they had, or drama teacher.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
Oh yes, yes, that's
yeah,
right.
good to see him. And we have this kind of brief. He's very good in it, but just depressed. But um, one of my favorite recurring jokes here is that he's replaced by the football coach who
Yeah,
teaches, who directs the play like it's football, and it
that's
actually
right.
works. He's actually, and it's,
True.
and he's very honorable about, I haven't done this before, but hey, it's all about blocking, it's about movement, let's get out there. And
Very
then
passionate.
they end up doing the tempest, and it gets standing applause. And
That's
um,
right.
his very earnest attempt to do it, I thought was so sweet and funny, and the fact that the
Yes.
play actually, as far as everyone making the play is concerned, goes off great. um,
Mm-hmm.
which, going back to the theater, she is trying to be in the theater, does not get the main part she wants, and again another just teenage asshole is oddly dismissive of her best friend Julie, who gets a much better part, of her just like, yeah, I thought it was worth you got the part, not congratulations.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
jealousy all the way.
yeah.
Definitely.
And this being in theater starts her first romance of the movie with Danny,
Hmm.
who turns out to be gay. And uh,
Right.
I thought I was kind of curious for your take on how this was handled. I had to remember like this is 2002 because she of course breaks up with him and is kind of devastated because she finds out he's gay by seeing him kiss a guy. And they just kind of don't talk for quite a while after that. And then I think she ultimately
Hmm.
becomes a friend again, which I thought was nice, but has to kind of keep a secret too. Between him, I think he actually is ultimately the better boyfriend than Kyle, the Timothée
Oh,
Chalamet
100%.
character. Was
Hmm.
this 2017 was a big year for Chalamet? I think it was this and Call Me by Your Name came out at the same time.
I
They're pretty
think so,
close.
yes. Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
was this or which one did you see first? Because I know you're a fan of both
Oh, that's it.
films and of the actor.
You know what? I think it was this film
Hmm,
actually. And he is kind of like a minor character in
right.
this. And he's also in Greta Gerwig's
Right.
Little Women as well.
Yeah,
And
he's great
he's
in that.
actually a little bit, yeah, he's a little bigger in that, like a bigger role in that. So
Yeah,
but he plays a very good asshole in this one, but which is
he
like
does.
fun to see. Yeah.
It was very fun to think back to like I was maybe closer to being that guy than anybody, being like definitely reading Howard Zinn. I actually had that book and would
Really?
yeah. It's a
That's
good history
funny.
book, People's History of America. You
Hmm.
get that in a lot of college classes if you have a hippie professor. But
Right.
you know, so kind of going through the teenage learning their own things and saying something occasionally that is maybe outlandish but true, then also saying like,
Yeah.
you know, like those are much more serious relevant thing happened. He's like, you know, people just got bombed in Afghanistan. I was like, okay, that's
True.
so happening. Her just saying like bad things can happen to multiple people. Like, there can be more
Yeah,
than one bad thing at a time.
that's true.
But I definitely knew a lot of it, especially because I was in the debate club in high school, so there was a lot of
Oh,
that
I
type
didn't know
of.
that side.
But yeah, I don't think
Hmm.
it. I hope it doesn't come off because I wasn't very good at it. But there was a lot of well, actually, here's a much worse thing. Did you ever think of that type of guy who would be
Hmm.
reading a history book could be able to tell you about a genocide you never heard of, um,
Right.
and just generally kind of apathetic and not really engaged, but the cool, mysterious guy who
He's a
plays in the
great,
band.
yes, yeah, sexy crush
Yeah,
boy, I guess. He's a great like cynical character. I felt
right,
like even all of them, like something that I like too is that none of them really felt like parodies or anything.
right. They're not very
They all
extreme.
felt no, and they felt pretty grounded, and that's what in this regard it made me kind of latch onto them a lot more and really feel
Mm-hmm.
for them a lot more too. I think that none of their stories are really outlandish. I felt I to go back to I like your question about the what's I forget the first boyfriend's name, but that
Um,
they
Danny.
Danny, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I felt like they I mean Danny was very much like flirting with Lady Bird in the beginning, so
Yes.
there's really no real sign.
He says "I
Um
love you" first, I think, doesn't
I think he does like he's very sincere and
he? Yeah.
is very flirtatious, like seems to be into her, like
Right.
so
And we should note
that is
he's from a much richer family as well.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry to
yeah.
interrupt, Megan.
No, but that you're right. That's an important fact because Saoirse, like she says, like she's on the wrong side of the track. So
Yeah.
they're from opposite neighborhoods, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like they threw the gay story like in there, but
Right.
I don't know. It's just maybe he was like bi and didn't have the words then, or like that wasn't the thing
Yeah.
then. Because it just seems kind of funny. I think they also like had a very sweet montage sort of scene together where
Mm-hmm.
they're being very very loving and like lovey and quintessential teen movie almost like. I think there was some playing into
Right.
that I wouldn't want to make it like not sincere for like this if it truly is like this poor like gay boy that's is stuck in a relationship that
Yeah.
he's not really a part of or something like that. You know
Well,
what I
I think
mean?
especially being, you know, Catholic, we're from a richer family, and there's
Mm.
one of one of my favorite moments was when she goes to the richer family for Thanksgiving. She goes. It's actually the house that she's passed several times and says, "God, I wish I lived here."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh, that's actually a possibility. I could marry this guy," and just kind of
Yeah.
fantasizing with that. But is going through the house and comes across like a framed portrait of Ronald Reagan,
Oh yeah,
and she
yeah.
laughs and says, "Is this for real?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is like, where do
It's
you
like,
think you are?
yeah.
Like, this is a rich Catholic family in
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento. They're
Yeah.
Republicans."
Yeah.
But I think my take on it was that he was felt forced to conform and was trying very wholeheartedly, sorry, to get into a straight relationship and to appear good and
Sure.
to convince himself this is actually what I want, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, I thought it was. I'm glad it was included in there because even if
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
small as it is,
definitely.
it's often not included in stories, and it happens, you know. And it's not just
No,
a
that's true.
joke that he's gay. It's not the punchline is that
It
he's gay, you know.
That's right. That's right. And it's kind of, I mean, they have a friendship after that becomes very sweet. And I did appreciate, even though it's not necessarily on her, but she was very, very kind to him, like when he was in distress, basically
Yeah,
about his coming out. And
right.
that's a sweet moment to include as well. Like I
I
appreciated
think
that.
that's a good moment for being more mature and realizing this is not about her being hurt.
I
This
agree.
is about something else. You have enough of those that feels very age appropriate for an 18-year-old.
That's right. That's right.
um, I think I was genuinely surprised by the ending of the movie because
Mm-hmm.
there are these beautiful shots of Sacramento, and I think like so many other people who leave the Bay, you think about going to Sacramento, and it frankly is just too hot. But it's a cool area. It has some
It
beautiful
is.
architecture. The bridges are
It
great.
does.
They're like it's a big city. You can get good food. You know,
Oh yeah.
there's culture. There's theaters. There's you are close to Davis, which is one of the
Hmm.
greatest universities. It is a cool town, much more than you would think and then Lady Bird thinks. But she has
Hmm.
this moment where the head nun that she's working with is talking about an entrance exam she wrote somewhere about her hometown. Says it's clear you love this
Yes.
place,
Yes.
and she kind of comes to this acceptance of okay, I'm gonna go to Davis, and then does get accepted to I don't even know if they say which one it is, but to a school in New York.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I didn't think that was going to happen. I really thought she was just going to be about her coming to her
Mm.
acceptance, and the movie was about to end. And then there's like another 15 minutes, and
Right.
it's still a short movie where the mother daughter stuff really comes to a head of the mother just doesn't talk to her until she
Yeah.
leaves,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which I thought was the most immature thing a character did in the movie was just literally give your kid the silent treatment who's about to leave for months, you know, for
Uh,
college.
it happened.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Did you, when upon your first viewing, was that surprising to you, or do you think that's where it was going or should have gone? I don't think it's a
I
mistake by any means, but
right. I mean, I liked it. I think it was like a moment. I don't know. It's kind of like what I thought it was like you get what you wish for and then you're not happy is what happened to Lady
yeah,
Bird. And it's not that she wasn't happy, but she kind of like f's up her in her first week of college too over there,
right, right.
and finds herself yearning for home and like
Hmm.
yearning for some kind of semblance of her past life. And so she actually like ends up going in a church and being real or
Yeah,
a Catholic church. Well, actually, it was
Presbyterian.
hard to tell if it was. Yes, it was hard to
It-
tell. Yeah,
yeah,
it was like I don't think that's a Catholic
it's a cool
church.
old building. It doesn't look like a Protestant church
Yes,
in California, at least
that's
like
right.
most of them.
Very New York
Yeah,
architecture kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah. So, which is kind of cool too. Like, I don't know, there's all this for me, I related to the aspect of like being very I just get attached to like California. I feel like I am
sure.
attached to California and I feel attached to my hometown, like I think a lot of people are. And especially if you've been in one place your whole life, you kind of just don't realize until you're gone that you'll end up craving these things, and like it's your security blanket almost. So
Right.
I liked it because I thought it was very telling of her. She also ends up like reaching out to speak to her parents and stuff and
Yeah.
like say a nice thank you basically. And I thought that was it was very sweet. In other words, it was just kind of like a nice ending.
It was. Yeah, I thought that was a good, appropriate, like everything's not fixed, but it's
Yeah.
better, you know? Yeah, I thought the pacing and the story felt very true. Nothing felt
Hmm.
dishonest about what should or would happen. Going back real quick on that note too, that I don't remember her name, but her kind of new best friend that she's trying to get in with,
Oh
she's
yeah.
trying to get with the cool kids, who is someone that her and her actual best friend Julie are often critical and making fun of. And it's like once you get to know her, there's really nothing wrong with her. She's not this. I don't really
Hmm.
remember her being the bitch who's talking shit about
Right.
everyone else. She's just kind of wants to marry her boyfriend and is looking forward to the future, is looking forward to being a mom. Like, she's not a mean person.
I
No, go
think
ahead.
there's like a lot of classism going on
Yeah.
that I didn't realize so much, but I think that especially a place like Sacramento, there is so much like financial crazy divides.
Mhm.
And like I actually knew that the girl said she's from Roseville, and like
Right.
I know that neighborhood, I've been to it before, and it is pretty like the amount of change and like the physical location
Mm.
is really astounding almost. Like it's
Right.
in a small, you know, contained area, but it's like the economic divide is pretty drastic, where you
Right.
literally could be, of course, in the same city, and then
Mhm.
but let alone like nearly the same neighborhood, but be like in totally different
Right.
areas of life, which I like that they highlighted too.
And that's true. I think there is like an ignorance that the richer kids have,
Yeah.
which, Timothée Chalamet, the supposed activist, is also one of the richer kids.
Yes, that's
So
right.
there is that. Like, there's like the party they go to is just at one of these mansions.
Yeah.
But like at
Hmm.
first, her like she's not the mean girl they kind of make her out to be once they start hanging out there. She's maybe
I
ignorant
agree.
that she's the richer one. you know.
Yeah. Like to that, it's kind of nice that none of them are crazy mean or anything like that, or crazy like
Mm.
something goes so wrong. It's kind of like Lady Bird's her own worst enemy, which I think a lot
Yeah.
of teen movies, it's more so like someone's an antagonist, or like the parents are an
Hmm.
the villain or whatever, and it's kind of like, no,
Right.
Lady in this one, Lady Bird definitely like digs herself in a hole quite a few times, and that should be
Yeah.
talked about too. Like
Oh,
talk about
that's
more.
absolutely true. Because yeah,
And
I don't think anything bad ever really happens to her. Most of the bad
yes.
things, like the most embarrassing things that happen, are completely her. Like she lies to her new rich friend that that big beautiful blue house that was her
Yeah.
ex boyfriend's parents' house was her house. That's a very avoidable lie. you
Right.
know, so many of the awkward things are just her trying to be someone she's not, or
Yeah.
being hurtful without thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that seems unique to me in a teen movie, especially. There isn't the bully, the principal, the
Yes.
parents.
Yes. I think so.
Because
And I
as
liked it. It was
yeah, I
refreshing.
really agree. So I have a question for you after closing thoughts on it. We
Me
could say,
too.
okay,
Actually, I have a quick
good,
question. So I have a
perfect,
superficial question for you.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Let's hear it.
I said it before. So I love Saoirse Ronan. I think she's
Yes,
amazing. Like she's a great
right,
actress.
she is.
How did you feel about her NorCal accent, California accent, if you will?
Oh yeah, yeah. Could have used some more hellas. I think Timothy Chalamet's the only one who says hella, right?
He
um,
got the quote, that's hella tight
yeah,
twice,
right,
and
exactly.
you know, he didn't quite pull it off either, I will
Yeah,
say.
I agree. Yeah, it was a little lacking, but there's like,
Hmm.
I thought it was a good American accent, but not a great
I
North
agree. Hmm.
California accent. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. That that reminds me, a former job I had was completely remote. I never met any of the people in person, and
Hmm.
there was another blonde guy from California. His name was Sean, and people would get us mixed up until we started talking because he's from Southern California, and
Oh yes.
just remembered a coworker saying like, "Oh, you guys aren't from the same part. That's what we talked about." It's like, yeah, we're from the opposite part. The
The
same as like most
yes.
other places. If there's like that much,
Oh, definitely.
like yeah, literally why we don't talk the same.
Wow. Could you see the
um,
difference?
oh
Did you
yeah,
feel
I
it?
mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't talking to them absolutely. They had a fairly traditional Southern
Right.
California
Hmm.
drawl, for lack of a better term.
It is.
um,
It really is one.
yeah, yeah. Was it? Especially on a rewatch, was it grating to you, the inaccuracy? Was it like,
Oh no, not at all. I agree that it's actually a pretty good general American accent, especially her
mm,
accent's her she's Irish, if people don't know, and it's like
yeah,
quite a thick Irish accent. So
I don't think I've ever actually
I'm
seen a role of her play Irish. I've only heard like interviews, you
you know
know.
what, me either. And I tend to watch interviews, like a lot of interviews, just because I like
Right.
that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
her Irish accent is beautiful, and it's just pretty crazy to me when people can bend that much. And
Yeah.
I am a stickler for it. I think like anybody would be if they're a stickler like about their, you know, you want to be there's just something about it. Like, you want to be represented correctly.
Right,
And
right.
they're really, like you say, like, you could tell the difference between you and your like SoCal coworker. And there really is just like such a specific way to speak
Yeah.
that I noticed. And even like specifically to Sacramento, because
Mhm.
it's too, I would say it's too far to be considered the Bay Area. It's not the Bay Area,
Yeah,
folks.
people from the more general Bay Area would agree.
Yes, yes,
That's like
I think so.
don't be ashamed of being from Sacramento. It's the
I
capital.
know. It's true. It's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah, that's maybe a new thing that people like
Yes.
from SAC try to lump themselves into the Bay.
Right.
But they have a specific, very NorCal accent too. And I just think that like I'd be like very giddy to see it like done accurately, I feel like, in film.
Yeah. I know that's a great point. I'm kind of racking my brain now to think of a more accurate representation of it.
Mhm.
But
Well, I hope that
yeah,
my rec will actually
perfect.
go into that a little bit.
But before we get the rec, I do have a question for you.
No, please, yes.
So I think just a few days ago, Seth Rogen in an interview mentioned that there hasn't been a good high school movie since Superbad, um,
Oh my.
which I thought was quite a statement. And Superbad is also a movie I've waited to watch for a long time. It's better than I expected. It is pretty funny, but I thought
Hmm.
Lady Bird was a better high school movie.
Sure. Hmm.
So I just wanted us to go on record saying that. But I don't really keep track of high school movies. But I
High
thought
school.
Booksmart, which also has Jonah Hill's sister,
That's
Katie
right.
Feldstein, is also very funny and also a female directed movie that I thought was frankly
Right.
funnier than Superbad.
Very good.
They don't crank him out that often, and I don't keep tabs.
Right.
But wanted your
Right.
take. Is Seth Rogen wrong?
Well, to be fair, I really feel like Seth Rogen maybe did not see Lady Bird. It may have just not
That's
been
very
on his
possible.
alley. And you know what? Like, of course, like, I feel like he should. I really
Yeah,
enjoy this movie. I think it's a good one. I actually haven't seen Booksmart, and I really wanted to. I loved
I think you'll like
Beanie's
it. Yeah,
performance in this
yeah,
movie. I thought she was really a very, very sincere and like really sweet to watch and stuff like that.
yeah.
So I'm excited to watch it. And so I think that's just kind of it. He may just, and it may just be different humor things going on and
Right.
stuff. But I would say, because I think this is, for me, like, the big triumph of Lady Bird is that like we kind of talked about, it's very different, that it felt very, she is kind of the problem, and that's something that hasn't really been explored a lot in
Yeah.
movies, without being like super bad is edges into parody for me, or like it's very
Yeah.
over the top, which is fun to watch, and like I like
Hmm.
that too. But I like the sincerity of this one, and the messiness of family and stuff like that. So there's just many, many avenues to explore
Yeah.
regarding high school, that doesn't have to be like sex and drugs and stuff like that, So it's just a lot. I
Right.
don't know. There's a big world out
I,
there.
I feel like I think something I was reading, somebody made the point about Superbad more recently that it's maybe one of the last high school movies we have where social media isn't such a thing. Like the cell
Yeah,
phones all the kids have or don't have Twitter or Facebook. Um,
that makes sense.
but this movie also kind of has that, but just by being placed in 2002, like there's not, I can't believe this person tweeted this, or that's not a problem.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
TikTok challenge happening, which I
Thank
think
God.
would be. Have you seen the TikTok movie that's coming out?
No.
Yeah, it sounds
What is
awful.
that?
It's a thriller called Missing, where somebody is thinks their mother's been kidnapped, but the whole movie's told like through TikTok, like it's just
I
her on
did.
TikTok.
I've seen that. I didn't know it was through TikTok specifically. Like,
That's
I've seen
my
the
understanding, at
trailer.
least from the trailer, and it's
Okay.
or something that's supposed to be TikTok, but I can't think of a less engaging way to tell a story. But,
Oh
um,
no.
okay, moving on to recommendations, unless we have
Sure.
a last comment. I just think it's great. So I highly recommend checking out Ladybird. Don't be like me and assume that a movie about a religion you weren't raised in or the other
Oh.
gender all school is not going to be related. Well, it will be. So check it out.
I'm I'm so glad you liked it, Seth. For me, I'll say like it was extremely accurate. Like, it really hit home for me. I said that before. And if you're wondering, like, this is pretty on the nose of what growing up kind of in that same timeline is like. So
Yeah.
it's nice in that way. It feels very nostalgic. It feels like a I was gonna say everything kind of looks like an old photograph also to
Yeah.
me. And I tend to love that. Like, I think it's very beautiful and a beautiful way to shoot and like set things up in film. So I really,
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. Hmm.
Absolutely. All right, Megan. You want to take the first recommendation?
Sure, I teased it a little bit that Lady Bird felt extremely accurate to what growing up in California feels like, growing up in a Catholic school feels like. So I have that movie for me now, but I didn't have necessarily before, actually before Sorry to Bother You, a film that really, really felt like it represented like the East Bay area specifically,
Mm.
which I am from. I love it so much. It's my home. And I get very nostalgic for it too. And even upon rewatching Sorry to Bother You, while it does tribute Oakland very, very nicely, I found a film that I felt like does it even more. And I think I've told Seth about it, but this film is called Blind Spotting with Daveed Diggs and Daniel Cassar, I think, are the main characters. But this is set in Oakland, and it is a very experimental film also, which is nice, but it's like topical, which is should also be like, I should say, a trigger warning that it talks about police brutality in Oakland of young Black men, but in a very, if you can imagine it, funny way. It's an extremely funny movie. The biggest takeaway that I have from it is that I've literally never seen, first of all, dialogue be represented so well for the Bay Area, and like just the overall feel and like demeanors of people represented so accurately. That's what I feel like this movie did for me. And like I said, like I was like so hyped up to see it because it felt very like, it just felt so accurate. Like I was just blown away. So if you want a really, really accurate representation of, I would say specifically Oakland, it is kind of an homage to Oakland. You should check it out.
All right. That is one I still definitely need to watch. So,
Yes.
one of my professors at St. Mary's, actually, I know his house was used for a few shots, like his front
Oh,
yard.
that's awesome. I
I
know.
think his kids are actually in it. Like, is there a shot of kids running through sprinklers?
You know what? I don't know specifically. I'll
Okay.
have to rewatch it
It might
myself,
be like in
but
the side or something, but those are his
yeah,
kids. That was his front
there's
yard.
a lot
So,
of B-roll. Like
yeah.
it's really nice. Really, really nice.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to go a different direction here, and
Okay.
kind of going down the vein that this was a directorial debut of an American director
That's
who's
true.
now gone on to do other things. Actually, we should just talk real quick too. She's still acting occasionally, not as much as she was prior to this. She's in White Noise, the new
Okay.
Baumbach movie. She's been in a couple Wes Anderson movies. So I'm kind of curious
Right.
to see what route she goes as an actor turned director. Like, do you do
Yes.
because she hasn't starred in her own movies, which is interesting.
Right.
She's not
Mm-hmm.
doing Orson Welles. I think it might be more Ron Howard. If they are acting, it's
Yeah.
not their own thing, and it's going to be much more being in film. So I'm kind of curious to see where that goes. But
Yes.
um, there's a long history of actors trying to make a movie and it not going well,
Definitely.
longer than you would expect. Like for every successful one we have probably dozens of things that just didn't happen and they'd like to pretend didn't happen. Like Nicolas Cage, our boy, directed a movie, and that's not exactly one even diehard fans talk about. um,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
but going back to my suggestion is going to be the Coen Brothers debut movie,
Oh,
Blood Simple.
okay.
Anne and I recently made a pact, blood oath, whatever you want to call it, with some friends here to watch every Coen Brothers movie, which I'm very
My.
excited about. Yeah, there's 18. Did you say why?
I said my,
Oh
or
yeah,
like
sorry.
my goodness.
Yeah, I'm
My
very excited
goodness.
about this. We're one down, 17 to go, I believe. But um, yeah, so we're doing them in order as well. So there might be some Coen Brother Rex coming up down the road
Okay.
here. But then we watched their debut, Blood Simple, and it definitely does have this is a low budget first time people making a
Mm,
movie, but it was still really great. It was very, even roughly knowing what it's about, it was much more twisty than I expected. It is a
okay.
messy murder gone awry, greed in a small town in Texas. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
shots are just phenomenal, some amazing imagery. Some actors they end
Nice.
up working with later, like Francis McDormand is married to Joel Cohen. I believe they met on set of this movie. So
Yes.
very, very
Mm-hmm.
cool to see some of the early threads of what would become a Coen brother movie
Nice.
back in 1984. Highly recommend. It's on the Criterion Channel right now. It is as rough around the edges as you would expect a debut to be. That was a crowd funded. They did not go to film school, to my knowledge. This wasn't
Right.
like a 20th Century Fox production. This was, they did some crowdfunding for a year, got $1.5 million and made a movie. So
Nice. Nice.
And also in that way, kind of very inspiring for how a young filmmaker can go about making a movie.
Right, right. I that's what I've been struck by too is like even when we talked about with our previous episode Memento. If you haven't seen that, go ahead,
Right.
check that one out, folks.
Check it out.
But that's like his second, basically like his first like big budget or not,
Yeah.
bigger budget film. And
It's his first
I'm
professional film, I would say.
there
Yeah.
you go. That's a better way to say it. And
Yeah.
now I'm like very intrigued by filmmakers first, a filmmaker's debut, because I just really
Right.
want to know what do they care about the most to put
Yeah.
themselves out there. And about Lady Bird too, to bring it back to it, I feel like this is a very sincere like take and sincere movie to make for this director. I just felt that it was very earnest in what it's trying to be too. So I liked it for that.
And I think like directors more recently being like maybe 70s on, or very conscious about being on a tour. Because think about like Stanley Kubrick, Alfred Hitchcock, and like Fellini, like their first movies were just jobs they got. They weren't their creative vision. It wasn't David Lynch working on Eraserhead in film school. It was just they were hired to do a movie, and usually not considered among their best work. Often, not on these lists of best debuts from directors.
Sure.
So, there might be some of those that we overlooked that, 3 or 4 movies later, somebody blows us away that we start following them. But Greta Gerwig, I think, was kind of instantly an auteur, and has continued to prove to do that. So
right.
Excited to see what her long career as a filmmaker will have in a whole story, and I'm very curious to see if she ever acts in her own movie.
It's true.
It'd be fun because she's a very fun screen presence.
Well, and it made me think of even my king of Jordan Peele.
Right.
He's made 3 movies, hasn't been in any of them, and they're very topical to like. He's a very funny man. He's a good comedian. So like, I wonder if he'll ever interject himself that way.
That's very true. And I don't remember who I was talking about this, but since like if you're in your own thing and you're the lead, you're not really directing, which is kind of a controversial statement. But it's like, how much was Orson directing Citizen Kane if he's in every scene?
Right.
It's
I don't know if I could do it.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't do it.
we said no.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Well, folks, that does it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and we're going to have more coming soon.
That's right. Look out for Barbie coming up next for Greta Gerwig. I'm sure Seth and I will talk about it.
Absolutely.